name is Carl Valeri, host of Aviation Careers Podcast, and in this episode, I'm going to teach you how you can have 1 week vacation every month as an airline pilot and also increase your quality of life coming up in this episode. But first, let's big shout out to our sponsor in this one, and that actually is Stratus Finance. Stratus Finance is giving away those scholarships guides using the coupon code STRATUS. Stratus Finance is for pilots by pilots. Stratus Financial offers students loans for pilot training from zero to hero. Stratus Financial understands your needs because they are pilots, and you can find out more at Stratus Finance. As a sponsor of this podcast, Stratus Financial is giving away scholarships guides, and you can get yours for free using that coupon code STRATUS when you visit aviationcareerspodcast.com/free. You know, whether it's financing your dream of flying or simply the process by taking care of your student loans, their efficient, hassle-free funding can connect you to a life of your dreams of becoming a professional pilot sooner than you ever thought possible. To find out more, visit stratus.finance, and don't forget to use that coupon code STRATUS to get that free scholarships guide, which, by the way, has been updated this month, so check it out. So let's move on to the show, and I know you're all here for this. This show is actually an add-on to the one where I talked about how to make $1 million as an airline pilot. So this is the antithesis of that. This is the opposite. What we're going to do today, we're going to teach you how you can actually have a great quality of life while making money, but also how you can do like I do and take 1 week vacation every month. Now, what do I mean by that? That means I take 7 days in a row off. Some people may not term that as a vacation in the airline world, but in the real world where other people work, that is actually considered a vacation by most. And as you know, I usually only work about 12 days a month. I try to only work about 12 days a month. Sometimes I have to work 15. And then I sometimes only fly about 4. And I'm going to teach you some of the tricks that I use for that, and also some of the things that other people use, not just me. And if you actually have something you want to share, feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. And also, if you have questions, please write in. We do have one question at the end. I'll get to that. So anyway, let's look at how I take a week's vacation, every month as an airline pilot. It enables me to do this. By the way, I don't take a vacation. I do this, and I love doing this. So that's what I do. So that's it's up to you. You can do whatever you want on a vacation. You can enjoy yourself, or you can work hard and create a podcast or own a business or something like that. But that's up to you. That's the cool part. So anyway, first thing you should do is drop trips. Okay, in other words, drop trips. You get rid of the trips that you have on your line. So what do you mean by that? So in the beginning of the month, we bid our trips, or in the previous month, we bid our trips. And what happens is our schedule comes out. A lot of times they allow us to improve upon our schedule. And we do that by dropping trips, either paid or unpaid. Most airlines have a system of like paid time off. A lot of people call it PTO, or you can do it unpaid time off. There's a lot of minimums, though, as far as certain airlines have, and that's going to lead into the next thing that I'm going to talk about. But what you can do, this is what I do, I immediately drop as much as I can, okay? I drop as much as I can, and that's how I get a lot of days off. So maybe in the beginning of the month, I'm able to drop maybe 2 days, 3 days, maybe 4 days through that whole first part of it. I've actually done upwards of a week before, and that's a little bit tougher, usually in the slow months. So to do that, right, to drop trips, et cetera, and to understand how much you can drop comes our next part of how to have a great quality of life and take a week off vacation. Number two, know your contract. I said this in the other episode in How to Make $1 Million as an Airline Pilot. I'll say it in this one. Know your contract. That is the best way to get time off, is to know your contract. Know all the rules. Understand things like if you're bidding, how much time between trips and how you can use that to your advantage, or how actually putting trips together may actually benefit you. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So know your contract. Absolutely know your contract. Know everything about how to trade trips, how to use PTO, what's the minimum amount you can go towards before you have to use your PTO, or whatever else it may be. So know your contract. The other big part of this is, number 3, is to advertise trips to give away. So what I do, and this is what I do in the beginning of the month, people used to think, what is he doing? Is he just trying to improve his line? I would advertise everything. And the reason being is I want to do this. I want to be home. I want to be able to help people and do career coaching, do that group coaching I do once a month. And I love doing that. So what I do is I advertise all my trips. Now, you don't have to do that like as extreme as I do. I advertise all my trips, and hopefully someone's going to pick them up. I've never had someone pick up all my trips, but I will say the downside to that is that sometimes people do take most of your trips, and you may not get any pay for that month. So be careful of that, because usually when you advertise a trip and someone else picks it up, that means that you're no longer going to have the pay for that. They're going to get paid for it. So that drops your pay, and it also drops the number of hours. The way you can do this to make it towards your advantage, to bid towards your advantage so that you can have other people pick up your trips is this. Go and get 1-day trips and 2-day trips and trips of high value. So 1-day trips, a lot of people pick those up. Why? Because they may be sitting at home and saying, gee, I think I want to go fly today. There's nothing out there. Let me look into that bucket where other pilots are advertising their trips. And so they'll pick up a 1-day trip. The 2-day trips are also good, and because there are some people that, like myself, that don't want to drive into work unless it's going to be an overnight, because I got to drive on a highway that's really busy. I drive an I-4 in Florida. It's crazy. It's like the Belt Parkway in New York, if you guys know what I'm talking about there. It's crazy. So I actually just like to go in for 2-day trips because of the fact I just drive one way one day and back the next day. A lot of times I'll pick up stuff where it goes in later and gets back earlier. So 2-day trips might be good for people, or maybe they just want to go in for 2 days. The third part of that, as far as advertising your trips, is make sure some of those trips are of high value. The high value trips are going to be taken, period. So if you have a trip that's worth 16 hours for 2 days, that is something a lot of people will pick up. So those trips are pretty rare. Many times those go to the more senior pilots. So one of the things that actually would be to your advantage is to actually move into a base where you actually are more senior. So that's the next thing we're going to talk about here is become more senior. And what do I mean by that? Go to the base that's junior so that you can advertise those trips. Now, the downside to that is if you have to commute to base, that might take away from some time off. So you have to measure that. Like I'm in a very senior base. I live close to home, and I love that. So I don't mind doing what I'm doing. And that's another thing that you do is actually bid reserve. Bid reserve. Depending on the airline and depending on the time of year, bid reserve and bid it strategically. And that's one of the things that I think people don't realize. So during the summer, bidding reserve may not be the best thing to do. And the reason being is that's when the weather is, that's when everybody's traveling, that's when people call in sick, that's when the system breaks down. So they call in all the reserves. During the slow times, bidding reserve is wonderful because they don't call you as much. So a lot of times, depending on the airline, I'll sometimes get called in for about 4 days in a month. Sometimes I'll get called in for like 12 days in a month or even more. That all depends on the weather for that month and it depends on many different things as far as how your airline's doing, but primarily it's the time of year and the weather. So bid reserve if you're senior, right? Become more senior, bid reserve, and that helps. Or if you're more senior, bid a line and get rid of some of those really cool trips that other people want. So the next thing that I want to talk about as far as how to actually make your life better. And this is not something I recommend, but I see people do it and I hear about it and someone's going to say it. So I'm going to talk about it because someone's going to ask me about it. And bid a SicAtion. Well, what's a SicAtion? That's a sick vacation. Don't really recommend this because if you're calling in sick, you're kind of abusing the system there. But people do it all the time. They say, hey, I need a mental health day. I get that. You should call in sick for a mental health day. I get that. But as far as like, say you have a 5-day trip and you're like, ooh, here's a great way to get 5 days off. I'll just call in sick for that 5-day trip. Be careful, though, is going back to knowing your contract, because many contracts will actually have you come in and talk to a chief pilot about why did you call in sick all these different times. So say you're taking a lot of quote unquote SicAtions, why are you doing that? So that's a lot of times it has to go under the dependability reviews. All the different airlines that I've worked for have had those in their contracts in different varying degrees. Some are how many days off. Some will have you come in and talk to the chief pilot if it's a day before, like a holiday, or the day after a holiday that you call off sick. So people are improving their their schedules by SicAtion. The reason I'm mentioning this, not that I'm one that's condoning this. I just say that a lot of people are going to ask me in the questions in the comments. You never mention SicAtions, and yes, people do. They call in sick, and that's one way that a lot of people get time off. I don't do that, but a lot of people will. Also, the other thing is, the next point is that you should use all of your vacation. Use all of your vacation. If you want time off, use your vacation. This is kind of a little bit different than most other jobs in that our vacations, usually they're about a week long. Say you become senior and you get 4 weeks of vacation, which is terrific. That's the 7 days off. Say you only work about 16 days a month and you get 7 days off, you're down to 11. You could actually bid your schedule even lower so that you actually can have almost the whole month off. And I've actually been able to do this where I've been able to maybe just work 1 week during the month or just like 4 or 5 days in a month, maybe less than that, and bid my vacation properly so that I can get a lot more days off. So I'll bid vacation. I'll bid a vacation so that it will actually coincide with another vacation another month, so I'll get lots of time off. If, like for instance, in the first part of this year, my first 3 months, I maybe worked 3 or 4 days each month. And the reason being is because I bid my vacation properly and dropped trips like I was talking about, Advertise Trips and things like that. Again, it's all these different things combined. But a lot of people, what they'll do is, and that's on the other side, making money, they won't bid their vacation, only the vacations they're forced to bid, and they'll get paid back for that vacation, depending on your airline, depending on your contract. Again, know your contract. But bid all your vacation if you want that time off. Pretty incredible, actually. Most people can get at least half a year off, by the way, doing all these different things that I'm talking about. A good 6 months actually off. It's pretty amazing. Also, now, another thing that I do, because this airline industry is very cyclic. And as you know, if you signed up for my group career coaching and that mastermind group, we talk about the industry and the future of the industry. And I make predictions. And I've been doing this for years. I just don't do it on this podcast. And the reason I want to do it in a safe environment where people will feel safe so they can ask questions. Because once you start saying that, for instance, when I talked about the slowdown, many, many months ago for this year, 2024, I got a lot of feedback, people telling me I'm crazy. And that's just the way it is. So what I do is I do that within the group career coaching. But going back to the point is that during slow times, such as a pandemic, recessions, or the slowdown of 2024, like we're seeing right now, do a couple things. Bid no-fly lines. What's that? Some people call them voluntary incentive lines. It's where you actually get paid to stay at home. During the pandemic is a good example. They were doing voluntary lines where you stayed at home and got paid for that whole month, and you would get paid like a reduced rate. That's the other agreement. Usually, say you normally get paid like 75, 80 hours in a month. Well, you may only get 50 hours, 40 hours, 30 hours. Back after 9/11, I negotiated with the company I was working for then to allow us to do 20-hour lines, which was really cool because you could do a 20-hour line, drop 20 hours. You may only be working 2 days in a month, which was kind of neat. Or not working, I shouldn't say that. You only get paid for 2 days in a month. You can actually PTO days and things like that. Say you want to pick up trips. Some of these voluntary incentive lines allow you to do that. It all depends on the contract. So there's a lot about understanding your contract, but understand this, that you can bid no-fly lines where you get paid to sit at home. Another thing to do to take time off, voluntary furloughs. Now, you got to be careful on these voluntary furloughs, right? Some you do get paid for a portion of the voluntary furlough. Mostly you do not. And during that period, you have to look at the contract and look at the deal. You may actually get your health benefits paid for. So there's some things in there you got to look at. A lot of times you don't. You have to pay for those health benefits. But again, a voluntary furlough, voluntary time off, it goes along with this VIL lines or incentive lines that I talk about, voluntary incentive lines and no-fly lines. Actually, a lot of people say this, and it's kind of true. Well, it is true that these voluntary incentive lines and these no-fly lines, they're really a proxy for a voluntary furlough, right? So you're taking time off voluntarily. Furlough is, a taking time off. Usually when we talk about furloughs in the airline industry, they're usually involuntary leaves of absence, and that's usually it's a bad thing. When furloughs are happening and voluntary incentive lines are happening, things usually are going bad. So just remember that. Also, as far as this is concerned, make sure that when you're looking at this, as far as the voluntary incentive lines and that type of thing, that you are somebody who understands your contract. I'm going to go back to that. Know your contract. And so all these things I want you to do. I want you to look at, dropping your trips, bidding your vacation, and doing all this trading, advertising trips. All this is stuff that'll help you actually do like I do and get 1 week vacation every month so that you can do things like this or go out on your boat, sailing, whatever. But you can do these things and you can listen to your friends because they also have some ideas based on the contract that you have at your airline. That's a wonderful thing about this job is you can actually take a lot of time off. Also, tell your friends, remember I talked about how I do a lot of predictions in the industry. That's part of our group career coaching. We do an incentive, we talk a little bit about a couple things, but first of all, we do an inspirational story. And then after that, I talk about the industry outlook and where I predict the future of hiring in the airlines. And then after that, we have a topic and then your Q&A. And it's really cool. It's only $20 a month and you can get 1 month for free by using Coach It Forward and going to our coaching page, aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching. Click on group career coaching. You can actually do that on the sidebar there too. But I really would love to have you on there. First month free, you get to look at all the past coaching sessions. It's a little more raw than what I'm doing here because this has to go up on YouTube. It's a lot different in that I'm very frank about things on those group coaching sessions. It also, the reason I did it is it makes it more affordable for you. So anyway, that's why a lot of people ask me, number one, why I don't actually put my predictions out there on the internet is because of the fact that it kind of wears on you getting all the negative feedback from all the different organizations out there that are telling you you're crazy until you're right, that kind of thing. So anyway, if you have questions, aviationcareerspodcast.com/contact. I hope this was helpful. And also, maybe if you're somebody that's looking at this as a career, this might help you decide whether this is the kind of career for you. But there's a lot of different things you can do to make this a great career so you can get 1 week's vacation every month and also increase the quality of life. Or you might be one of those people that wants to make a lot of money. So check out the video I did on how to make $1 million as an airline pilot. But most importantly, do something for me. After you're done with this video, or if you're listening, take action. Do something today to move forward in your career and in your life. It may be something very small, listening to podcasts, watching videos, maybe signing up for our group coaching and getting that free coupon, or getting the scholarships guide and getting one of those for free, aviationcareerspodcast.com/free, or just going and talking to your friends about aviation, or just getting out there to the airport and talking about flying. But the most important thing you can do for me is to take action today. Take 1 step today to move forward in your career and in your life. We'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there.